I became the stupid guy. No joke. You type in stupid Richie, I'm there. Not planned. Nothing I'm doing is actually planned. It's more like, why wait?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Because planning, I feel like planning is important. You should plan. But I feel like an hour of doing will save you 10 hours of planning.
That's such an interesting concept, this idea of like, don't trade time for money.
Yeah.
Because most of us do. Almost all of us do.
Well, we all do in some way, shape, or form. But it was more like the thought.
Yeah.
It's a totally different way of thinking.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I love podcasts and things like that, is because we all grow up in different homes and have different backgrounds.
Yeah.
But hearing someone else share their experience, you're like, oh, there's another way. Yeah. Maybe I could do that. How could that apply to me? So,
where did you go to college?
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
I went to BYU Hawaii.
Okay.
And then I was student body president there.
No, wait. Why were you student body president? That's fascinating.
Because it was fun. I don't know.
That's actually incredible. That's so cool.
I ran. They voted for me. You know, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but like, man, I have probably 1,000 questions just on that.
Well, there you go.
Like, what? Like, why? Why? And I don't mean that in like a negative way. Like
why would you take on all that?
Yeah, why would you? I wouldn't even think that. So first of all, I went to UVU and I was working and all that type of stuff. So
yeah,
there was no way I didn't even have an actual normal like college experience. But I would never even think to do something like that.
I don't know why. I don't know why I did.
Did you want to be a politician or something?
No, absolutely not. Definitely not. And I never. That's for somebody else. I just thought it would be fun. And it turned out to be a really great thing. Got to meet people from all over the world. You know, there's students from over 70 different countries there. And I got to be just a part of like that culture of giving, you know.
What a beautiful campus.
Oh, it's unbelievable. There's nothing like it.
That place is so cool.
They call it like a living laboratory. You know, like things are happening there that people don't even understand. It's amazing.
What did you go into at BYU?
International business.
Okay.
I went on to do an executive MBA at Thunderbird.
Okay.
And I've been doing international business ever since.
So what was the first thing you did once you got out of college?
When I was still in college, So when I was student body president, President Shumway at the time, he was sharing with me how there are students from all these different countries, and many of them may want to go home, and he wasn't sure why they wouldn't. And I was like, what do I know? I don't know. Like, you know, so I would go and I'd ask, and I'd say, what are you going to do after college? And they'd say, well, I'm going to go wherever there's a job.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, there's no jobs in my country. So I was like, what? President Trump, people don't want to go home because there's no jobs. They want to go home, but they can't.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh, okay. That was where it ended. But then I thought, what if you could create jobs?
Yeah.
I thought, what if there is a way to help people overcome that gap by being an entrepreneur?
Mm-hmm.
And I had an economics professor that said at the same time that students from BYU Hawaii should not just be employees, but they should be learning how to be employers.
Mm-hmm.
So I started putting it all together. I wrote a business plan called, I don't know, the idea was to create a center for entrepreneurship at BYU Hawaii.
Yeah.
Totally failed. They said, I don't know what I'm doing. And you know, where would the money come from? And so to answer your question, I was like, whatever. That was just more of a challenge than anything to me. I was like, I'm going to do it anyways. So there was a girl who had won from Mongolia, the business plan competition years before.
Mm-hmm.
And I started asking around, how do I do this? What if I want to start this? And I actually started with her a cashmere company in Mongolia. That was my first venture.
Really?
Yeah. And so I considered myself at that time a social entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, I didn't know what that was. But as I asked around, is it a nonprofit? Is it a for-profit? People started teaching me like ideas of different ways to do things.
Mm-hmm.
Same kind of thing with the watermelon thing. I don't know what. I just know what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And then people come out of the woodwork, you know?
Absolutely.
So we started businesses all over the Asia-Pacific Rim. Japan, Philippines, Papua New Guinea, Samoa, Western Samoa.
And were you traveling to all these places?
Not all of them. Not all of them. Cambodia, we had a pig farm in Cambodia. Got donors involved.
That's so cool.
I don't have any money. I'm just getting people involved. And eventually it turned to a center for entrepreneurship that was ran by volunteers for several years until it got, the endowment, and now it's a full-on thing. It's been going on for almost 20 years now.
That must be so incredible
it's crazy.
to look back on.
It is. It actually is, and I'm super, super grateful. I obviously didn't do it, But like I had the idea, I put the wheels in motion, I did everything I could to make it happen. But the whole idea was, if somebody wants something, how can they get it, even if they don't have the resources, especially if it's an important thing? Why would they wait till they're retired to go back and do this thing when they could affect generation now, their kids, their grandkids? You know, ultimately, when we say in America, we're going to wait till we're 65, we're basically saying, screw you, 3 generations of people that I could be impacting while you wait for me to get fat, rich, and happy. And I think it's freaking messed up. Just do it right now.
So what came out of that experience?
I feel like I'm going on like really fast here, but since I did that, it got me into all kinds of different businesses, including like consulting companies, which is different than coaching. I think of coaching as more as one-on-one, and consulting more working with organizations, which led me to just listening, to be real. People would ask me questions. What do you do? How do you do it?
Yeah.
And I can't really say what I do because I'm like doing weird stuff. Like I have this taxi thing in Samoa, and I have this pig farm. I got, and they're not mine, they're theirs. But how can I help people's wishes and dreams come true in a way that's organic and right now? So it led to a book. So I wrote a book called The Power of Starting Something Stupid. That book killed it.
Yeah.
Shadow Mountain picks it up. They published it. They're the general audience imprint, of Deseret Book. And it's in like over a dozen different languages. But where it really blew up is where it was when, do you know who Brene Brown is?
Yeah.
So Brene Brown read it somehow. And she wrote a whole blog post about how it changed her and her husband Steve's life.
Wow.
And then it went from wherever it was on Amazon to the top 100. People started picking it up. And that brought in all this quote unquote business. I became the stupid guy. No joke. You type in stupid Richie, I'm there. Not planned. Nothing I'm doing is actually planned. It's more like, why wait?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Because planning, I feel like planning is important. You should plan. But I feel like an hour of doing will save you 10 hours of planning.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I try to just do stuff and try to get people who are smarter than me involved. But what people wanted with their stupid idea was, a lot of times it was some physical product. And so I have a background in that.
Yeah.
So I started a company called Prouduct, products you're proud of. And the first thing we ever made was like a bamboo creaser for like knitting or sewing or something for some old lady. No joke.
Really?
And then we got into tiny houses and yoga pants and printing books and journals. We make over 100 different products at any given time now.
How did you do that? That blows my mind.
Sorry, I'm like getting too excited here. well, the only answer is.
I feel like every time you say something, I'm like, but how?
The only answer is one at a time. You know what I mean? One at a time. But what was fast forwarding a little bit further, after years of doing that, we still have this company. We're kind of like a outsourced COO, so to speak, for people.
Sure.
We'll make it, package it, ship it, warehouse will fulfill it. So all the company has to do, all the brand has to do is promote the brand and sell, which is the most important part at the end of the day if you're trying to make something move. Yeah. But then I realized people weren't starting these stupid ideas just to start them. Like nobody wants to start this pencil business or whatever it is. And we literally work with someone who want to make the next generation of pencils. Cool. But they wanted what they thought would come from it.
Financial freedom, happiness, things like that.
Time, travel. And so I started asking people like, we could help you make money and we would. And some of them would have more freedom than others. But most entrepreneurs that I've met, they say, I'm going to start this thing so I can get my time and freedom back, only to lose my time and freedom to the business. Yeah. And you go, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing it that way? So I wrote another book called Anti-Time Management. And the whole concept was, it just came out about a year ago, but the concept is first build the castle, then the moat. Yeah. So you live from the dream instead of endlessly toward it. Yeah. And in that way, you can have the time and the freedom and the essence of the environment you're trying to create, and your work supports it as opposed to leading toward it. Yeah. Which is a very different way of thinking, and it works.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, what did you learn writing the first book? Like, how did you make that successful? That doesn't just happen. I mean, on the Brene Brown things, but even like Brene Brown getting it into her hands, that doesn't just happen.
I learned that the people you think will help you the most don't. You know what I mean? When you're trying to promote and market. But there's those loose ties, the friend of a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Those people, for some reason, come out of the woodwork and help you. That's always the case, and it's always surprising.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I learned that. You may have experienced something like that too. But what I really learned is that most people don't read any book. They might just see the title. You know, so the ones that do get through it, they're if it's depends on what you're teaching. But in my case, I'm trying to help people change the way they work, change the way they live, change what they do. When they apply it, it is just such a grateful feeling to see someone go, I did this because I read that. And I go, that's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah. And then they start sharing it, and it just takes on a life of its own.
Yeah, something I didn't share yet, I'll share it now is, so I have a brother-in-law that passed away in his sleep at 21.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It happened out of nowhere. Like, it was just totally unexpected. He was living on and off with us, actually, in Hawaii for about 5 years. And then a few years later, we had our fourth son, and we named him Gavin after my brother-in-law, Gavin, who had passed away. And he caught pertussis. And the doctors didn't know what it was. It's also known as whooping cough. No one knew what was going on until they finally tested for it, and it was too late. There was nothing they could do. And I remember holding him in my arms after they pulled out all the wires and and tubes and whatever else they're doing to monitor, handing him to my wife. And I'm just on my knee, like crying and putting my hand on his little heart while my wife is rocking him, and we're like singing lullabies. And he slipped away. And I remember leaving that hospital empty-handed, thinking, like, nothing matters. And it's not that you go numb, but you stop judging other people. You stop judging situations, because you realize that most things literally, not figuratively, matter. And so when I wrote The Power of Starting Something Stupid, that had just happened. So the idea was, more than ever, start now.
Yeah.
Sherry Dew asked me, she said, what did you learn from your son passing away and your brother-in-law passing away? And my wife and I were like, what do we learn? Like, what kind of question is that? Yeah. But I came up with later something that I call Gavin's Law, which is live to start to live. When you live to start those ideas that are pressing on your mind, you really will start living. But so many people are like the living dead, walking around with thoughts despite circumstance, and they don't do anything about it, and they shrink a little bit.
Yeah.
But even if you fail, when you just get out there and you go, I'm going to try this thing, you wake up a little bit. And so that's why it's like, what do you do? And I'm doing so many different things. It's like, I'm just doing projects, and I want them to be in alignment with my values, because I've met too many very wealthy millionaires, some billionaires, no joke, who at the end have said, literally, like, and when I say literally, I know I said that again a second, but like, actually said the words, money is easy, time is hard. And I met the spouse of a billionaire, who she is also a billionaire, and her husband had passed away, and she had no shame in saying her husband was a terrible father and husband. And I don't judge. I'm not saying this. I'm not anything. But I thought, I don't want that to be me.
Yeah.
I don't want to wait to live these dreams and do these things and help other people. Also, I feel like when you sacrifice what you love for success, you get neither.
Yeah.
How you spend your time is how you show your love. So when you bake a cake without sugar, you can't expect it to be sweet. Like, value your time. Don't time your values.
Yeah.
I know it's a different generation now and a different time, and we can do different things. But we know from the past that people that wait to do the things they really want to do, who time their values, they regret it. So what if there's a way we can do what we really want to do now and work in a way that supports it, instead of sacrificing what we love for success?
Isn't it interesting, like in those moments of despair and total grief and heartache and like, I can't believe this, that you went through with your son and your brother-in-law, that, like you said, you kind of come away from like that, like nothing matters. And I think maybe another way to say that is like, you're not in control at all.
Good point.
Right? You do not have control So why not just do what you want to do right now?
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
Because I think too often we do try to control everything about our lives, everything that's going on in our world, almost to like a fault in some ways. Do you think?
Totally agree. And the outcome is never what we expected. And we didn't hold, our dreams like, you kind of want to have these dreams and hold them lightly. Like it's this or something better,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like when you lose control, there's some freedom in it, because now you get to like look at life for what it actually is, and you're not in this grind. You're not in this, how do I impress X? How do I get to this next thing? Like it gets kind of fascinating at that point.
Absolutely. And anyone listening to this, they're going to say, well, what about this? And what about that? What about this? And it's like, you're right. What about that? Like, it's true. Let's work through it,
Yeah.
But one time, Stephen M. R. Covey asked me to work with him, and I was young, in my mid-20s, and he said he wanted me to, like, I don't know, give speeches and consult, like, executive people. And I'm like, aren't I too young? I said this to him. And he kind of banged his fist on the table. This is a real story. This really happened. It's just me and him. Banged his fist on the table, serious but jokingly, and he goes, Richie, people say they have 20 years experience, when in reality, they only have 1 year's experience repeated 20 times. And I was like, what? What? That's crazy. But it blew my mind open to say, it's not that experience isn't important. It's not even that experience is overrated. It's that I can learn.
Yeah.
It's continuous learning. That's essential. It's so important.
Is Stephen M. R. Covey, is he the original Stephen Covey?
He's the son of Stephen
He's
Covey,
the
so
son.
he wrote like Speed
Okay.
of Trust and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting what that company's become, Franklin Covey,
Mm-hmm.
and how, they become like a whole different, like leadership training, leadership coaching, that type of stuff. Do you do any of that type of stuff, like leadership coaching?
I do. I work with a ton of executives, especially venture capital people and their founders, in addition to some pretty decent sized businesses. But I'll ask the questions that nobody wants to hear.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go to a founder and I'll say, right there in front of, like, I don't know, the investors or whoever, and I'll say something like, so what are you going to do after the exit? And this is way in the beginning, because everyone in that world is like, money, 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 exit. And they're like, we're going to change the world. It's like, no, you're not. You just really want to make money. And you go, okay. Like there's somewhere in there, but in reality, they're waiting for all these investors to get their money back. This is the game.
Sure.
But when you ask someone, what are you going to do when you exit? Do you know what they say? They tell the truth. They finally say, this is what I've been working towards. This is my dream. This was what I wanted to do the whole time.
Yeah.
So to me, working with enough founders, I realized that the biggest threat to the business is the better dream. They bounce when there's a better dream.
That's interesting.
So then I say, well, what if we could take that better dream, and this is in no way, shape, or form manipulation. It is 100% let's work from our values. What if we can make that happen now? Because when you do, like inside the business, you start to remove the bottlenecks.
Right.
Because now people have availability, they have autonomy, they start putting competent people into place, they start trusting people in different ways. And now all of a sudden you're living the dream from the dream, the business is flourishing, and it's not this grind where one day we're going to exit, I can't wait to go public, and oh dang it, Bitcoin, oh dang it, oh no, that disappears because you're already successful.
Yeah. That's a really interesting way to look at that, actually. What have you found makes a great leader? What are the great attributes or traits of a really great leader?
Discernment. I think discernment is the future of leadership. I think it's the number one leadership competency needed right now. The reason I say this is because whenever you go to the IBM studies, and they'll go, creativity is the number one leadership competency. Mm-hmm. And later they'll say, data is the number one leadership competency. You got to use it. I'm like, what are you talking about? Those are like two different things. The creative part and the data part. Mm-hmm. I'm a weird person. I study these things and I look at them. But then you start seeing now with what's happening in the world with AI. And I really feel like these robots will make us more human because we'll stop doing the things that are less human and do the things that are more natural, creative, and fun and creative and artsy.
And things like that.
I totally believe that. But one who discerns doesn't necessarily have all the information because the information doesn't exist yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times today, we don't even know what's truth and what's not truth. We don't know what's coming from. It's not just two sides, it's multidimensional.
Yeah.
So I think that the leaders who have discernment are saying, regardless of what's happening here, here's where we're going to go.
Yeah.
And they discern through not having the data, or maybe not even having the most creative people on the planet. And they come up with alternatives that other people haven't seen because they know where they want to be, despite the challenges it'll take to get there.
Yeah.
They see beyond. I know I'm a Covey person, but they see beyond the habits.
Mm-hmm.
Habits are means, not ends. But we're always thinking of habits as ends. Oh, I have this habit. I'm really good at it. Yeah, but did you reach your goal? Nope. What's the goal? The goal. Change my habit. No, it's not. That's not it. Let them naturally organize themselves around where you're trying to go. And I think the future of leadership are people that can discern and say, here's where we're going. Here's how we're going to get there. Here's what it looks like. Even though we don't know how to get there, we're going to figure it out. Even when we don't know if this is a truth or a lie.
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
That's what we need.
How do you learn to discern?
Good question. And I'm not trying to make this a spiritual thing. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I think
I don't care if you are.
Okay, good. But because I use discernment, in spiritual stuff, but like discernment to me is an actual learnable skill.
Mm-hmm.
And the way to discern to me means ask a better question, get a better answer. Because our lives are led by the questions we ask.
Interesting.
So if you want to discern, you'd say, I know people are talking about this. I know people are talking about this. I know we're all going crazy. I know we're scared. Or maybe it's a calm time, which is we're not even thinking at all. Like, yeah, more,
Yeah.
But when you ask the not just the bigger, but the better question, instead of being bitter, so to speak, right? When you ask the better question, it elevates your thoughts from what's happening below to what's happening up there. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
So I went to New York City for the first time years ago, from Hawaii. And when I got there, there's the Empire State Building.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm like, I'm going to be a tourist. I'm going to go do the thing, whatever. Sleepless in Seattle, whatever. I'm going to go up there. I didn't know that when you got there, there's an 86th floor, and that's the floor that everyone goes to. But you could pay a little bit more to go.
The 101st?
102nd.
102nd.
Have you been there?
I have.
Oh my gosh. So you know what's going to happen.
Recently, this year.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So you can picture this. Like, even when you're going up the elevator, like, welcome to the 102 club or whatever. You're like, yeah, this is so cool. But when you get to the 86th floor, if you remember, if you were there on a busy day, there was like 1 million people.
Yeah, it's packed.
You can't even get to the little glass thing and see out.
Yeah.
Unless you kind of squish your way through, and then you're like, I don't know if I want to be that guy. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
But as soon as you go to the 102nd floor, it's tiny. It is so small.
Only so many people can even
the
get up
space
there,
is so small, but there's so much room.
Yeah.
Nobody's up there. And I feel like that's like discernment. It's like going to that next level that even though it's a smaller space, there's more room. And so then at that point, you get to decide, who am I going to share this room with? Where are we going?
Yeah.
And then you can come back down to the masses and do your thing. But I think it's that elevated site that helps people, discern where they're going to go.
How do you spend your day? I'm fascinated by you as like
oh my gosh.
It's like your day to day. Like, are you reading a lot? What are you doing? Meditating, yoga?
None of that, unfortunately. Maybe I should be doing that. I walk on the beach with my little dog.
So just like way better stuff than that.
His name's Velzy. He's a little Maltese Shih Tzu. I literally just walk on the beach. I do my consulting calls or put deals together.
Mm-hmm.
I told myself 20 years ago, this is when phones were just like still flipped before they were computers, that I wanted to work from my cell phone. Because I figured if I could do that, it would create what's called a forcing function, where it would force me to create an environment where I could, even though I didn't know how. So people think I'm crazy. I just walk up and down the beach, talking out loud on my phone, walking with my dog, go surfing with my kids, hang out with my wife, and we travel all the time.
Yeah. Why do you travel so much if you're already in the most beautiful place in the world?
Oh, man, I don't know. You're right.
Do you ever think about that?
I do, because every time I get back to Hawaii, I'm like, this is like amazing.
We just got back from Denver.
Why did I ever leave? No, but I'm obsessed with cultures and people and hanging out and just experiencing the world. And I think that's where honestly a lot of the ideas come from, because I soak it in.
Yeah.
And then when someone asks a question, because I do a lot of like answering people's questions.
Yeah.
And I it's weird because I don't necessarily, I don't want to come out the wrong way. I don't have to. I like to.
Mm-hmm.
And so you start hearing what's happening in various different industries, and you're answering their questions, and you're talking to like real CEOs that are doing real things, and they're all talking to people on the ground. All naturally, you just start making connections between different things, like with like the podcast. You're like, they said this over here, they said this over here. It's all confidential and stuff. There's nothing like that. But you start seeing the world differently than anybody else could see it.
Yeah. Why is Hawaii important to you?
Oh, I love it.
Well, I mean, beyond that, right? Like beyond like just how beautiful it is, it's the most incredible place. But like, what about it? Like,
It's the people.
Yeah.
It's the people. It's a culture
That's
of
what I was
giving.
hoping
It's a
you would
culture
say.
of
It's pretty-
caring.
yeah.
You know, there's nothing like it. Like, it's just so, I know I keep saying there's nothing like it, but it's magical. It just feels good. It's welcoming. And you have to, I'm not from there. So I do my best to respect, the locals, and respect the culture, and do my best to give back. And I'm not perfect at it or anything like that. But there's a feeling there that doesn't exist in other places.
Absolutely.
My brother-in-law, he was when he passed away, he's buried there. My son's buried there. So like our kids grew up on the beach and at the sands of the cemetery. It's a weird thing to say out loud, but it's true.
What island are you on?
Oahu.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we live right there in Oahu. We live at Sunset Beach on the North Shore.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I know earlier you said you didn't want to make it spiritual, but now I'm going to force you to.
Let's go.
Why? What is spirituality to you, and why is it such a? I mean, I could tell immediately, like it's an important part of your life.
There is a source, I feel like that we tap into. And if it wasn't for spirituality, I mean, you just have what you have. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And you could try and make meaning and assign meaning to things, as I do, but sometimes I think there's a bigger meaning and purpose, and that helps me get through the day. I'll tell you this though, we a couple more stories. At some point, my wife met this lady who had 3 kids, a 7-year-old girl and 1-year-old twins, a boy and a girl, twins. And she asked if we could watch them. We did not know this woman, and because she just got a new job, and so we're like, and she had to work at night. We're like, sure. And she left him at our house, and she didn't come back. This happened, and it was about a week, and then we learned, Child Protective Services was trying to figure things out with her, and it's one of those kind of situations. They came to our house to get the kids, and I said, "What are you going to do with them?" And they said, "Well, nobody wants 3 kids." Who says that? Meaning, like, no one can take care of that many so quickly. You know what I mean? Overnight. Yeah. And then, like, well, where are they going to go? They're going to sleep in our offices until we figure it out, and they might get split up. Like, there's no way we're going to let that happen, So my wife and I immediately, we didn't have to talk. We just look like, we'll take them. And they're like, well, you're not foster parents. You're not certified. You don't have all the things. But let me say this on a side note. We've created space in our lives that even though we don't know what's going to happen, when, where, how, we allow for opportunities to present themselves. And when they do, if we want to, then we are able to say yes. It's something we do intentionally. Anyways, so we said, we'd love to take care of them while you figure this out. And they said, well, you can't. Oh, maybe you can, because we can call it kinship placement, even though we're not remotely, related, but because she put them in your care. Done. You can't get paid, whatever. It's fine. So we went from 4 kids to 3 kids, because the one that passed away, to 6 kids.
Wow.
Virtually overnight. And we love these children. And we had them for 2 years, uninterrupted custody. We wanted to adopt them. We thought that's where it was going. It didn't turn out that way. They went back to bio mom, which was wonderful. Yeah. And also scary for certain reasons, And it was, and still is, torture, because it's such a wonderful experience with them. But when these kids you love leave, it's a different feeling than when a son passes away, because there's a finality to that. And we feel like we'll see him again. Whereas with them, they're alive and we don't know where they are, what's going on. Are they hurt? We don't know. Anyways, right after that, my wife had a stroke. and she lost her memory.
Oh,
And she couldn't even say our kids' names or mine. Wild. I'm going to go fast. So we fast forward. She goes to the hospital. They can't see any damage to the brain or anything. She gets her memory back. And we decided, after all these experiences, deaths, these kids leaving, what are we going to do? We decided we were going to huddle up. This is where, to me, this is the operationalization of spirituality. We wanted to huddle up, and we went on a road trip from New York. We never knew where we were going to go, one-way tickets. And we drove for 6 months, we ended up doing this. New York to California to Mexico to Canada, back down, and then over to Hawaii. When we get to Hawaii, my son was hit by a car crossing the street by a distracted driver. He ends up in the hospital for quite some time. He should be dead. And getting back to this idea of spirituality too, at the end, I'm like, my son Lincoln, I said, Lincoln. Like I was really worried that he would be scared of life for the rest of life.
Yeah.
And it's not that way. He feels like, he doesn't say this out loud, but this is how he acts. He feels like he beat the car.
Oh. What a baller.
He's Superman.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a problem. You know what I mean? He's out there doing these crazy things. And to answer your question specifically, I was walking along the beach right near where we live when he was in the hospital I was getting some stuff from our house. And I had this thought, does God hate me? And I thought about that for a little bit, because these things can crush you, you know?
Sure.
And I thought, these things didn't, I started putting on my like thinker hat. I was like, well, these things didn't happen, like they weren't strung together. They were in isolation, and they didn't happen to me. They happened to people I love. And then there's this thought, this revelation that came to my mind, and I hadn't really thought of it before this way. And I thought, love God unconditionally. That was the thought. And as soon as I did, I thought, if I love God unconditionally and don't blame Daddy in the sky for all the things that are going wrong, then I can go back to work, and I have the power again to do the things I need and want to do. And I learned that one of the greatest miracles of faith is having faith when there is no miracle. So I don't worry about things when they go wrong. I think about assigning meaning to them. And to me, I think that is the most spiritual thing you can do, because as a creator, we're trying to find meaning amongst the mess.
Yeah. What have you learned from your wife?
When she came out of the hospital when our son passed away, I asked her how she did it, because I don't think you think about this. You have to leave your son behind.
Yeah. So, I don't have the exact experience that you had, but we had a miscarriage.
Oh, I'm
my
so
wife
sorry.
was like 5 months pregnant. It was like pretty far along, right? And she actually had to give like a stillbirth of the kid, so we had to go in there. Our son was dead, but she still needed to give birth to him. It was like this crazy situation, right? And so you're up there. We were up there with like the families that were having kids. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's the same place. So you hear like the babies crying and all of that type of stuff. You're like, we're not going to experience that here.
Torture.
And then, you leave after it's over, which is like, it's the craziest thing I've ever been through, actually. Like, seeing her have to go through that specifically, like leaving the kid, like on the, like, where they weigh them or something, I think is like where, anyways, it was, and we walk out of there, and you don't have a car seat. No need, like, you know what I mean? So like, I relate in some ways to what you're saying. Just like when you have to leave there, it's crazy.
Thanks for sharing that. That's so sad and so powerful. And there's no comparing pain. It's all pain.
Yeah.
It fills your whole soul. You know what I mean? But losing a child is something very different. And you've experienced that. And what I learned from my wife was, she said she felt when we were leaving the hospital, she felt like her name's Natalie. She felt like there was another Natalie that was holding her hand and carrying her through it.
No way.
Yeah. She felt like there was someone inside of her that was bigger than what she thought she could do on her own.
Interesting. And what have you learned from her about leadership and how to live and make an impact? All these things that you're like about.
She's the kindest, most loving, most empathic person. And I've also learned from her, to be honest, to be less or even non-judgmental. And just to see people for who they are, and also who they could become.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the way she lives.
That's interesting. Are you writing another book?
This last one just came out a year ago, and I guess people could always be writing books, but I kind of want to give this one some time to grow. The soft cover comes out the paperback comes out next month. And it's already in a few different, 6 different languages. It comes out in Korea right now. I mean, there's all kinds of cool things happening, but I'm always noodling on ideas and writing them down. But yeah. I'm just
do you have a podcast? You'd have a great podcast.
I do. Yeah. The Richie Norton Show.
Okay, perfect. I love it. Yeah, people should go check it out. And you've got the 2 books. Where could they find the 2 books?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble.
Okay. Anywhere books are sold.
Anywhere books are sold. The Power of Starting Something Stupid, and the new one's called Anti-Time Management.
That's cool. So what's next? What are you working on? What's the future?
That's a good question. And I'm always thinking of what's the next big project. I'm going to be developing more of what I'm doing with this anti-time management practice, so to speak, with startups and with companies and with individuals. But then on my company, Prouduct, products you're proud of, we are really working with companies in a deeper way than we ever have before to help fulfill all their product creation, sourcing, and distribution and fulfillment needs. And it's not it doesn't sound like that cool, but it is so fun to go to Vietnam and learn from these people that are doing magical things as everyone floods out of China and you see what's happening in Vietnam and other countries. And the way that people are showing up to meet the demand, it's not something you can read about. It's not Googleable. It's happening in real time. The world is changing. It's crazy. So that stuff lights me up.
That's cool. Richie, thanks for coming on, man.
Oh my gosh, such an honor. I'm so grateful. That was really fun. Thank you so much.
That was awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate you.